Oh, look at this wonderful old drafty house. Mary! 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 Have you seen my wife?
Merry Christmas,
Kids! Pete! Oh. Kids! Janie! Janie! Tommy! Oh, let me look at you. Oh, I could eat you up. Where's your mother?
She went looking for you.
With Uncle Billy. Daddy!
Zuzu, my little ginger snap. How do you feel?
Fine. Not a smidge of temperature.
Not a smidge of... Hallelujah.
Hello. George! George,
Mary.
darling, where are you? George, darling, where are you? Oh, George, George. George.
Let me touch you. Are you real? Oh,
George.
You have no idea what's happened to me.
You've no idea what happened. Well, come on, George. Come on downstairs. Quick, they're on their way.
All right.
Come on. Come on in here now. Now you stand right over here by the tree. Right there. And don't move. Don't move. What's happening? Oh, I hear them coming now. George, it's a miracle. It's a miracle.
What's happening?
Who's gonna come, Daddy?
Who, Daddy?
Come in, Uncle Billy. Everybody in here.
George, you better come.
Isn't it wonderful? So many friends. Mary did it, George. Mary did it. She told some people you were in trouble with it. They scattered all over town collecting money. Didn't ask any questions, just said George in trouble. Tell me,
What is this,
like it spread like fair.
Another run on the bank?
Here, George. Merry Christmas.
Now, don't push. There we are. The line forms on the right. Now, come in, George. Now, don't Merry Christmas. God bless you. Oh, Mr. Martini. Here's Martini. Step right up here. You'll all get up. I busted the jukebox, too.
Major ransom with charge accounts.
I'm not gonna go, George. I changed my mind.
I've been saving this money for a divorce if ever I get a husband. Merry
There you are, George. You got the faculty all left out a bit. Here's some beer to play with.
I wouldn't have a roof over my head if it wasn't for you, George.
Just a minute. Just a minute. Quiet, everybody. Quiet. Now get this. It's from London.
Oh.
Mr. Gower cabled you need cash. Stop. My office instructed to advance you up to $25,000. Stop. Hee-haw and Merry Christmas, Sam Wainwright.
Mr. Martini, how about some wine?
The fool flew all the way up here in a blizzard.
Harry, how about your banquet in New York?
Oh, I left right in the middle of it. As soon as I got Mary's telegram. Good idea, Ernie. A toast. To my big brother, George, the richest man in town. That's a Christmas present from a very dear friend of mine.
Look, Daddy, teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings.
That's right. That's right.
Attaboy, Clarence.
Listening back to the first pod, I'm wondering if you could do a voiceover. If you can get a voiceover from myself.
Me too.
Yeah.
I fucking hate
Maybe
my
like Ben Affleck.
I'll do it.
With doing a Boston accent. Something, cringeworthy hearing myself. Okay, so Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
Bedford Falls, 10 a.m. time. Is that when?
Yeah.
Roughly, I think that's what the is it Joseph says as he's teaching Clarence, showing Clarence. One thing I noticed about the newspaper, real interesting, but it doesn't show the date. Of course, I froze it and looked at the newspaper, and I'm like, it doesn't show the date. The Bedford Falls Sentinel.
Makes it timeless.
So it's timeless. So yeah, we had George, like we said, George rubbing it in Ernie's face. Look at my brother. And Ernie's like, I did parachute into D-Day, parachute into Normandy for D-Day, but yeah, whatever.
But Bert also won a distinguished
North
medal
Africa.
as well for being
Did he
an
win a
athlete.
medal?
Yes, he did. He did. I think he won. I don't know what the medal was. I'm
Marty.
gonna look it up.
Silver Star,
But-
maybe?
Yeah, but the fact is, like we talked about, the fact that he won a medal in Africa and then shot haphazardly into the crowd.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Like you said, the inquiry, there's going to be about 8 witnesses that can testify that Bert shot at them. Literally. So then we have, obviously, I don't want to get started again on Uncle Billy with his horribly
Irresponsible.
Wildly irresponsible.
And incompetent. I was thinking he's incompetent. So then we talked about George calling him a silly, stupid old goat and not finding the money. By the way, did you notice? So Mr. Potter has an office at the bank, obviously. He has a portrait of himself in his office, and then the bank has a portrait. So he's got multiple portraits of himself. Then later, when George, so does George go to his home later on?
No, George went to his office.
Well, there's a fireplace, and I don't think there was a fireplace. His portrait is over a fireplace.
Mm-hmm.
That's a power move right there by Mr. Potter.
And he had the chair that was also 10 feet lower than his desk.
Excellent, yeah.
I like that his chair was raised and George's chair was lowered.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's a power move. You're right.
So then George goes home. This is what I thought of. So George goes home, and Mary immediately, without his coat, without the Christmas wreath. What would your wife say if on Christmas Eve, you're supposed to bring home a Christmas wreath? What would your wife say?
My wife would say...
You're going back to the office and getting it.
Yeah, I would say so.
That's why Mary's the best. Mary's like, whatever.
Yeah. And she didn't realize there was anything going on with him at that point either, so she had every right to send him back.
Yeah.
But she didn't. No.
Exactly.
Different world. And then he gets home, and all the kids are carrying on, and she notices him from the corner of her eye, and he's got that blank expression with a little bit of tears coming out. And she says nothing.
But she could tell something's up.
But she says
She does
nothing.
a double take.
Yeah.
She stops
And
mid-sentence.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people try to press too much, and that it's not the right time to press. So she let him be for a little bit.
Just a great shot of her face. Doing the-
You heard people say, "Oh, good acting is reacting," where you're just reacting to what's actually happening.
I've never heard anyone say that.
Well,
nor have I, but Mikey's,
I'm an insider.
Mikey went to film school.
I
did go to film school.
For a
This
whole semester until I transferred to computer.
So Mary got to see Mary. Mary sees him breaking apart, right?
Mm-hmm.
Says nothing. Lets him. Then he goes off the deep end. And starts yelling at his kids. And
Well, he doesn't.
on. He kind of does. He says why would he have these kids anyways?
He did. Yeah,
Yes.
that was pretty.
Is that too strong? Why we
It's
surprised we
a little
don't
strong.
have pneumonia in this drafty old house? That's before we went up and saw Zuzu?
Yeah.
That's before he went up to see Zuzu.
Who, by the way,
calmed him down a little bit, I think.
He was very nice to Zuzu. Zuzu, terrible actress.
Yeah. She should have
Calmed
been
him down
fucking.
until the teacher was on the phone.
Staring at him, put the pedals in his pocket.
Yeah. So
This is how he checks the temperature. Puts his hand right over her head.
So loses control, yells at the teacher, then gets into a complete argument with the teacher's husband.
Mr. Welch. Yep. By the way, speaking of that, my daughter came home with a cold the other day, and of course I kept telling her I was going to call her teacher and say, "What's the meaning of this, you silly, stupid people? Letting my daughter come home with her coat open just because she got a flower."
But that flower was symbolic later on in the movie, correct?
Yes, it was. By the way, why is it Tommy? Tommy? No, who's the youngest one?
The youngest child?
Yes.
Yuzu.
No.
It has to be. Yeah, it has to be.
She's not the youngest.
Who's the youngest child?
The youngest is Tommy. Petey. I'm thinking of Petey. Why does Petey need to know how to spell Frankenstein for a Christmas play?
No, frankincense.
Oh, that makes more sense.
Yeah, I think you've been drinking a little bit too much. Yeah.
And who would know how to spell frankincense? That makes more sense.
But honestly, Donna Reed did. She was spelling it out for her.
Yeah, Mary's the best. Of course she knows how to spell. She knows how to wallpaper. She knows how to wear the shit out of a bathrobe.
You could put together a great contraption with a record player and a chicken.
She knows, right, mechanical engineering.
Well, she
knows how to do the Charleston.
She also talked about sex to her mother back in 1946.
Yeah, she did. She's making wild love to me. This is true.
That to me was one of the most exciting scenes to me because she's unbelievably hot.
Mikey, you need a parental warning on this episode.
Yes, that hot, steamy 1946 sex talk.
Well, his mother was right upstairs, so he had no problem doing that.
This is true.
Right? So.
By the way, I won't even acknowledge John and Paul's obsession with George, the way George kisses Ma Bailey. But Ma Bailey's pictures are all over the house.
Was it a little bit too much?
He's smitten with her.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Like I said, more families, not the only family that kisses on the lips. And then I cited Daddy's Home too with Will Ferrell. And
naturally, that's the next thing you would go to.
Nice. Absolutely. That's our next pod. So then George leaves. Mary gets right on the horn. That part's great. Tells the little kids to pray, and what a family. And he goes right to Mr. Potter's.
pleading, begging.
I had a question. So Mr. Potter not only has the portraits of himself, he has like a bust. Like I think he has 2 busts. One of them looks like Napoleon. My theory, I think one of them is Benedict Arnold. I think he admires Benedict Arnold's
his moxie.
His moxie and his valuing the dollar. So, could be Benedict Arnold.
Could be.
Prove me otherwise. Prove me wrong.
Well, he obviously knew what happened to the money. He was goading George. He finally felt like he had one of the Bailey boys,
of course,
in his grasp. And at that point, he was just crushing. He was trying to crush the spirit out of George.
I love how he says, I can do something for you. I'm going to call as a trustee, I'm going to call the police.
Yeah.
I'm going to send you on a rail.
You're arrested.
Such a dick.
Dick move. Complete dick move. And he did it with such pompous, cocky attitude. And And George was ready. George was ready and willing to kill himself.
Well, Mr. Potter gave him the idea. Mr. Potter gives him the idea, and George looks up.
Yeah. But when he was on that bridge, like he was seconds from jumping. You can see a little movement he made to go ahead and just make that plunge. I love that. That scene was like that. The visual, unbelievable. And then Clarence, being the angel that he was, and as smart as he was after watching everything that happened, jumps in.
Absolutely.
And then you see.
But first he went to Martini's.
Oh.
And that's the only time you even think he's semi-religious, and George, Mr. Welch, who kicks some ass, gives him a good beating. But George says, I'm not a praying man, but help me. And then he gets the beating. Then that's when he goes to the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Clarence makes his move.
So at the beginning of the whole movie, when they're talking to Clarence, is that when he's already at the bridge and then they say, let's go back? They don't show him at the bridge at the beginning, do they?
Yeah, because when at the beginning, they're all praying for George.
They're all praying.
Okay, so this is...
The beginning is right when he leaves the house.
This is happening, okay.
Right.
Because you hear the kids praying and everything.
Well, that's Mary telling them to pray really hard. So, yes.
Then like we said, one of the best scenes was with Clarence and when he's got Mark Twain book.
Mm-hmm.
His old-fashioned underwear, saying I died in these clothes.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
There couldn't have been a better actor for that character. I could see no one else doing that.
He was excellent.
Excellent, yes.
George was so amused by him right away. He's like, all right, I'm worried. Well, he says later, I'm worried about you, but he's like, joking around with him. Money, you don't have any money. Comes in pretty handy down here, bub.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Calls him a little fella. Right?
Yeah. Hey, little fella. But then they go to Nick's. Scary Nick's.
Hey, what do you say?
Lots of clientele.
Yeah, we talked about that on the earlier pod. But again, I'll never understand why Nick became Nick. I just don't understand that alternate universe being in effect. I just don't get it.
Well, let's try to make logic. How did he become that way? What's the logical step?
So obviously Martini was never in his life, right?
Yep.
So Martini might have been a big influence on his life, I assume. And maybe he guided him in a good direction. Who knows?
And he had to run the business himself, and he's running the business in Pottersville, not Bedford Falls. So it's a whole different group of people.
Obviously, Martini was keeping him down.
Right.
Martini kept him, showed him the whip.
So was that the real Tony?
Well, that Nick.
I'm going to say Nick. Sorry.
That is the real
Italian
Nick.
names. They're all the same.
That's what
garlic is.
Yeah. Remember, it's not just that Martini's not in his life. This is a whole different town. whole
Right.
different, like, just the people and the life and the growing up was probably everything different.
Some hard living in those Pottersville shacks.
Yeah. He's going from strip joint to strip joint.
Right.
So when they get kicked out after they see Mr. Gower, George is like floored and he's like drunken Mr. Gower, and they kick him out. That's kind of when it starts hitting George. He looks up and he sees it's Nick's, and then I like how his tone. He gets this real serious voice with Clarence. He's like, "Look, who are you?" You know, like deadly serious. Like no more joking around with Clarence.
Are you hypnotizing me? Is that when he said that?
Yeah. What are you, hypnotist?
He said that. I think he said that when they were at his house, right? Because they went to the house. He went to his house.
No, he said, "What are you, hypnotist?" When he sees Nick, I think, right?
Oh, okay.
Outside of Nick's, he pokes him. He says, "What are you, hypnotist?"
From Nick's, he goes to downtown, right? That's where he sees Violet.
Yes.
Scary Violet.
He says, yes, he runs through the town and he sees Violet. He says that used to be the old Bailey building and loan.
Yeah, and that's
Violet looks mean.
She looked downright scary is what she looked like.
So you get what are the places? There's pawnbroker, place that says girls.
Girls.
The Indian Club. The Indian Club, a great scene with George's face. He looks wild looking up at what used to be his business.
It basically became a place of debauchery and sin, unrecognizable to George.
So after that, that's when he goes. He sees Ernie driving by. He says, "Take me to 320 Sycamore." We all used to live on Sycamore Road, coincidentally.
That's right.
So he says, "Take me to 320 Sycamore." So I have a question. So why does Ernie's wife left him 3 years ago? Like you mentioned, wasn't he in the war? He was.
Maybe he had PSD.
What's that?
Maybe he had PSTD. What's it called? PSD.
You could do it. Work it out.
TG.
So, I mean, I think that could have been it, right?
Dude, he said 3 years ago. This is 1946.
Maybe she was tired of being married to a lonely cab driver who had no ambition to do anything else in life.
He was a war hero.
He was a war hero, but he came back.
My cab driver was a war hero. See?
Yeah. Well, she left him regardless.
Right.
Irregardless. So.
Don't say irregardless.
Don't say irregardless. We'll edit that out of the podcast.
So then they go the great scene with Bert. Bert tries to handcuff Clarence.
And your saddest scene too, Chris.
Which one?
That's the saddest scene for you because that's the last scene you see Clarence.
The last time we see Clarence, it always strikes me as I'm like, I know that's the last time we see Clarence.
When he disappears?
Well, no. He says when George. No, I'm sorry. That's not the last scene, David. After they go to the cemetery.
Yes.
Why did he go to? Oh, he went to cemetery. He went to the cemetery because Martini was the last person he talked to, so he went to Martini's house, and it was Pottersfield. It was the cemetery.
Right, and that's where he saw his brother. Yeah,
that's where he saw his brother. That's where he saw the gravestone. The music is great in that part if you listen.
Very ominous.
It's like ominous. Yeah.
Yep. And that's where he was. But that's what even explained the transport that Harry Bailey saved was in fact killed because no one was able to save Harry. Yeah.
15 planes he shot down. That was great. That was great. How Jimmy Stewart George was like, he was a hero. But this is also the scene where Clarence says, you really had a wonderful life.
Yeah. I think it takes such a disaster.
Broke the third wall.
Make you realize that.
He's like, George, it's really been a wonderful life.
He didn't wink like that, Mikey.
And then ding, a little wink, and his little glimmer in his eye.
That's when he runs away. No, he actually.
Well, he asked where Mary was. We were just, as we mentioned, somehow that was terrible news that he wouldn't like, that Mary
was an old maid.
Was an old maid who saved herself and worked at a library as opposed to one of the strip joints. And
wasn't he manhandling Clarence?
That's the last time you see Clarence.
Yeah.
Clarence, this says, this is rubbing his neck. He manhandled Clarence. He had to. He was punching down. Mr. Welch had manhandled him earlier, so Clarence was a 93-year-old Angels. So
with no wings.
With no wings.
Poor bastard.
I don't know if I want to be seen with an angel with no wings. So that's when he sees Mary. So he goes and sees Mary and says, "That's my wife," and she faints. And that's when you see Tom, Ed, and all those guys staring at him. But then he says, Clarence. You don't see Clarence. Like I said, that was the last time you saw Clarence. I get a little wistful. You never see Clarence again, even though, he's done his deed.
He's not on camera all that long, really.
No.
Still should have won.
For a long movie, he's on there for 25 minutes, maybe.
Still should have been the 6th Oscar winner in this movie.
Best supporting actor. So after Mary, he runs through town, gets caught up with Bert. Bert goes crazy, shoots into the crowd, kills 3 civilians.
Yeah,
a child and a friend.
See them drop.
Not a wonderful life for them.
Well, a wonderful life. And
then he goes to the bridge.
The best scene in the movie.
Great. Then as it's snowing now, you see, I want to live again. I want to live again as the snow starts falling. It's great. It's great how they shoot the cop car pulling up. They just show the bottom of it.
It's like the snow falling signifies he's back in reality, right? Kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And then he realizes he's got blood on his lip. He gets very, very, very static with the blood on his lip.
That's where that old son of a bitch punched me.
Good stuff.
And then the iconic scene of him running through town. That is one of the most iconic scenes in any movie.
What movie was playing?
Oh.
That's a good question.
See,
come on, folks.
What's funny is that scene, I don't remember. I remember seeing that scene before I saw the movie. It was I think it was in Gremlins.
It was in another movie.
Like they're watching it. I'm pretty sure it's Gremlins.
What was the movie?
John Moe is going crazy right now that you guys can't get this.
So the movie playing in the theater, he went by.
The Bells of St. Mary.
Oh. I gotta tell you, I have not seen that movie.
I haven't seen it either. Oh, I think it won I think it actually won the Oscar for Best Picture the year before. You gotta look that up. I think that's that. And then everybody, yelling for George. That's really significant that everybody loves George and they.
Oh yeah.
Then Merry Christmas, and a great underrated line is Mr. Potter saying, "And a Happy New Year to you in jail." Great. He gets back to the house where they left their kids with
3 strangers.
By the way, the newspaper man, he looks a little like Eisenhower, right? A little like Dwight Eisenhower.
A little bit.
Take a gander on your next viewing. So that guy, was it Tom who's the a-hole that wanted all his money?
Yes.
He makes a little comment. So they come in, Mary comes in, Uncle Billy comes in, says Mary did it all, it's great. I actually like Uncle Billy in this part. They all stopped giving money, and the guy Tom says, another run in the bank? I don't know if you noticed.
Yeah, a little dig. A little dig.
And then Mary says, I don't know if this is before. No, they said, they got a wire from London. Sam Wainwright, 25K. About time he showed up. You knew that was coming, George. No reason to freak out and contemplate suicide. But then Mary says, "How about a little wine, Mr. Martini?" And I was saying to Dave, it's like 200 people here. You're gonna put me out of business. What wine do you think I have?
It's a Wonderful Life too, as Mr. Martini is eating from the streets of God.
He's in the dumpster.
Out of a job. Out of the dumpster.
Sounds terrible, but I would watch. By the way, so Bert went and found George, right?
Yep.
George ran through town. Bert went to the airport and picked up Harry?
Small town.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're a
Where's the
municipal
airport?
airport. Municipal airport, right down.
Right on the way home.
It's like
Now, did
Springfield,
Harry
they
fly
have-
himself in?
Right in the blizzard. He flew
He
himself in.
flew himself, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
His mother, they already flew his mother home
Yeah.
after lunch.
And yet, you not a fan of Harry.
Not a fan of Harry. As I stated, all the times he screwed George over, selfish little coward. I mean, some call him a hero, but in my mind, he's a coward.
That's the wrong way to look at it.
He's no George. That's all I have to say. He's no
Well,
George.
even his uncle said that if George went to
George would have won 2
war,
medals.
he would have won 2 medals.
Yeah.
So there you have it.
His wet-brained uncle, as he was losing $8,000. So,
He thought he saw 2
Equivalent.
medals.
Equivalent of hundreds of thousands of dollars.
yeah. Then we have the great book, and you see that. I love the quote on the book. Remember, no man is a failure who has friends.
That's
Yes.
awesome.
Very dear friend. It's fantastic.
But hold on. But go back to the quote you saw on Under His Father's.
Well, I was going to say, so that basically, that quote, that part is one of my favorite parts, the bank run. But that kind of it kind of encapsulates everything about George and the basic plot of the movie. So during the bank run, George calls Mr. Potter, or Mr. Potter calls to check on him, right, to see if he needs to send the police. And then they show Mr. Potter's side, and he says, after George says, "You never miss a trick," and they show Mr. Potter's side saying hello, and then he's like, so George hung up on him, obviously, and then you see George, it cuts to George looking in the mirror, looking at his father's portrait, and underneath is the great quote, "All you can take with you is that which you gave away," which basically is why everyone loves George. Basically, this is, this symbols what George Bailey is all about, what he did for everybody, why they all, circled the wagons at the end, and also it's basically what his father was all about too.
Right.
He said, "My father never cared about himself. He never did anything for himself." George just had bigger dreams and everything, bigger aspirations, but he still,
had the greatest quality of his dad.
life. Say that again.
He had the greatest quality of his dad. He just didn't. It just took him a long time to realize that.
Exactly. The great Peter Bailey.
Yeah, and I just to me that does encapsulate the entire movie. I can't believe I didn't see that quote.
Yeah, no, I didn't mention. I never noticed it until I had to freeze it, and it's great though. He's just, they cut to him. He hung up on him already, and he's looking at a picture of himself. I mean, a picture of his father.
A lot of quotes. Because even that, was it, or when he was a kid, ask, what would Dad do, Right?
Yeah, what would Dad do? So there's a lot of Easter eggs in there about how great of a dad, his dad was, and how great he was. But to your point, Chris, he just had huge dreams, and he felt like a failure that he never accomplished them until that last second, where he realized that all the things he did far outweighed his hopes and dreams. And I think that's the epitome of the movie.
Really is. You never, when you think about it, when you notice that quote, that that whole part symbolized it when he and Mary gave their honeymoon money.
Yep.
And anyone who doesn't like the movie, frankly, is an asshole.
Like my son.
Are we?
Oh, sorry, Andrew. What's up, buddy?
Oh, go screw yourself.
And on that touching note, we come to an end of our talk on It's a Wonderful Life. I want to thank everybody who's listened, everybody who's subscribed, and I want to thank Chris and Dave specifically for helping me appreciate this movie more. I know it's, a classic, and I know I've seen it, and I know that I enjoyed it, but being able to kind of dive into it more like this has helped me appreciate it so much more, and I think for years to come, it's going to be much more of a viewing staple around the holiday season, or really any time. So while this is the end of It's a Wonderful Life, I want to ask you, people out there, to stay subscribed. Do not remove us yet, because this is not the end of the podcast. Things are going to change. Originally, this was going to be a It's a Wonderful Life podcast, get a few episodes out there, and that was it. But we like talking to each other, and there are other movies. Apparently, there are other movies out there. They're not as good as It's a Wonderful Life, but there are others out there that are worthy of a conversation. So, Pottersville is what you've been listening to. This is going to be Pottersville 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's going to be part of a new rebranded podcast name that maybe by the time you hear this, we've decided on what it's going to be, but we're not quite there yet. So stay subscribed. I beg you. And hopefully pretty soon you'll hear from us again with some more exciting, dare I say, fantastic movie talk. But until then, my friends, it's Christmas Eve, so Merry Christmas to everybody out there. And this was Pottersville.
Look, I think there's that. I don't know if you guys have ever had that moment where you feel like, and this is maybe deep, but like you haven't really accomplished much until you look back and think about all the things you did accomplish, and that did have an impact on other people.
Ooh, save that for the end.
Yes.
Yeah. You can edit that out. Mike, you can edit
Dave Cossetto as George Bailey.
Oh.
Wish I had $1 million. Hot dog!